This video is part 2 of a video essay in which I explore the question, how do you turn Mario into a good movie? In part 1, I laid out what I consider to be the two biggest obstacles that a Mario movie would need to address. If you haven't watched part 1, I would encourage you to do so before you watch this one, because in this video we're going to dive into some of the potential solutions to those problems. So let's start by addressing the character problem. We've established that Mario in the games is both static and flat. Now it may seem logical to want to change both of these aspects of the character, but of the two, I would say that the latter is the bigger problem. After all, a good story can still be written about a static character and still be effective, but it's important for that character to have some real depth. The YouTube channel Just Right has a great video about writing characters without character arcs. I highly recommend you watch it, so I'll include a link to it in a card and in the description, but to summarize one of the main points, a story that centers around a static character can still be compelling as long as that character can inspire positive change in the people around them. I think this particular approach could work well for Mario since it's a pretty good reflection of how the player, as Mario, often ends up carrying out various heroic deeds in order to improve the lives of the other characters in the world. Or to put it more simply, Mario's always solving other people's problems. I do think this static character approach is viable for a Mario movie, but again, without giving the viewer some kind of insight into why Mario is the way he is, the approach could possibly fall flat. No pun intended. So how do we round out Mario's character? Well, we need to learn more about him. If Mario is the kind of person that can inspire change, how did he become that person? In a lot of stories about static characters, we're simply told about some formative event in the character's past that caused them to become the character they are now. In those cases, the protagonist is already on the other side of a journey, and now we're seeing how that character, having already gone through that transformation, is able to affect the people around them. And maybe that's enough for a Mario movie. But how about the other option, the one where we actually get to see that journey unfold? What if a Mario movie is about Mario becoming that indomitable force of positivity? Earlier in part 1, I talked about how the real story of a Mario game is your own story as the player. In every Mario game, you're faced with a series of challenges, and at first those challenges might be too much for you to overcome, but as you play the game, your understanding of the controls and mechanics gradually improves, and over time you're able to take on more difficult challenges. And in that loop is a theme that is central to playing practically any video game: learning to overcome failure. Considering that Mario is sort of a poster child of the video game industry, I think it would be appropriate to give Mario an arc that reflects that aspect of video games. Instead of having Mario start out as that infinitely capable hero that we all know him to be, show the viewer how Mario overcame his own failures. And maybe if there's eventually a sequel, which, let's be real, the Mario movie made by Illumination will probably get a sequel, then that story could be about how having gone on that journey enabled Mario to inspire change in the world. Something that often frustrates me about movie franchises is that they don't really plan things out from the start. They just make one movie, it does well, and then they make a sequel and try to figure out what the sequel is about. But if you can plan to have Mario change in that first movie, and then set him up to change others in the second movie, I think that could be an effective way to tell a meaningful story over the course of 2 movies. Which brings us back to the story problem. How do we tell a story that centers around the theme of overcoming failure, while also evoking the best elements of all of the games? Alright, so I'm gonna level with you. I tried very hard to come up with a way to present these ideas without just straight up giving you a story pitch, but I just can't help myself. I was reading through that story outline that I did in 2017. Some of those ideas just still kind of resonate with me, so maybe it wouldn't hurt to give you an abridged version of some of the ideas that I had for the first act of the movie. Now, I still don't want to bombard you with just a giant cascade of fan fiction, but I think it would be worthwhile to share these particular ideas for how you might provide some insight into Mario's character while also honoring the lore that has been established in the games whenever it makes sense to do so. But not just for the sake of fan service, it still needs to be in service to the story. So, allow me to set the stage. We would start the movie with a prologue about Mario's childhood. There's a couple of reasons for this. Not only do I think it would just be neat to see the Yoshi's Island story on screen with modern CG animation, but it would also allow us to establish some of the character dynamics early on. Baby Mario and Baby Bowser could be established as rivals from birth, and we could also use this to offer some insight into Bowser's motivations as a villain. Now, is this just the opening of Megamind? Yes, it totally is. But you know what? Everything's a remake, so it's fine. And of course, we could establish Mario and Peach as childhood friends, we could show Mario and Luigi's dynamic as brothers, but more importantly, we would be able to showcase some preconceptions that Mario would have about the world. Of course, the prologue opens with a short sequence about a stork dropping Baby Mario into a nest of baby Yoshis, who then deliver Baby Mario to his parents in the Mushroom Kingdom. One thing this could also do is establish that Mario and the Yoshis are on good terms, so in the event that a Yoshi is an actual character later on, that established history between them would allow Mario to more easily gain the trust of the Yoshis. After that, we're treated to a montage of Mario at various stages of his childhood, and in each shot we would demonstrate that Mario is naturally gifted in everything he sets out to do, whether it's sports or music or even art. And these short scenes would serve as subtle allusions to some of the spin-offs from the Mario series. But more importantly, it would set up Mario as a character that expects that things will come easily to him. This sequence would also be an opportunity to establish a contrast between Mario and Luigi. Mario would be the capable older twin, and Luigi would be sort of a screw-up as a foil to Mario's natural talent. This younger Mario would be depicted as sort of a self-reliant kid with big aspirations. This way, Mario would be primed to experience a rude awakening in the first act of the movie as he steps out into the world and is met with unexpected challenges that he isn't able to immediately overcome. Now, maybe this idea only appeals to me as somebody who grew up being labeled as a gifted child only to struggle to live up to those expectations as an adult. But you know what? Maybe that's a good thing for a movie to actually represent in some small way. Now, I know we're focusing right now on imagining a movie without the constraints of the real movie's production, but this next idea just so happens to fit nicely with what little we do know about the real movie, which is the fact that both Donkey Kong and Foreman Spike are going to show up. Now, by some miracle, this happens to line up with one of the ideas that I had back in 2017. Given that these two characters originate in Donkey Kong and Wrecking Crew, both of which featured Mario, it's reasonable to assume that at some point in the movie, Mario will be working as a tradesman of some sort as a callback to those classic games. So let's go ahead and run with this premise. After our prologue, we fast forward to present day for the first act. Mario's all grown up, he's now sporting his big bushy mustache, which he's managed to grow in his early 20s, and he wants to make something of himself out in the big wide world, so he travels to the big city, maybe an allusion to New Donk City, and he gets a job as maybe a construction worker or a demolition worker, and we have Foreman Spike serving as his employer. On the job, maybe Mario has a run-in with Donkey Kong, who could be a co-worker, or maybe he's just a public menace who's trying to mess things up. Either way, Mario's encounter with Donkey Kong would be an opportunity for Mario to experience his first big failure. Maybe they get into a fight, maybe Mario accidentally causes an entire building construction to collapse. Whatever it is, Foreman Spike is furious, and he fires Mario on the spot. Not only would this play into our theme of failure, but it also pulls double duty by adapting some of the series' lore. So he gets fired, but Mario's optimism hasn't been snuffed out just yet. So he tries to get a new job, but that just leads to failure as well. So in a quick montage, we could show him trying to be a doctor, or a kart racer, maybe even a baker. And of course, we have to show him trying and failing to do some actual plumbing. But in all of these endeavors, Mario would fail, and this would shatter his self-image. And it's at this point that Mario buys into the lie that he isn't truly capable of being the kind of person he thought he could be. After having his dreams crushed, Mario returned to the Mushroom Kingdom. Now, he doesn't have it in himself to admit to everybody that he failed, so Mario just says he's visiting. But in reality, he has no intentions of going back to the city. Now, when Peach hears that Mario's coming back home to visit, she and Mario's other friends just presume he had found the success that he dreamed of, and so they prepare to throw him a big party to celebrate his accomplishments. Little do they know that Mario's lifelong rival Bowser has also caught wind of Mario's return to the Mushroom Kingdom, and so Bowser sends some spies to find out what Mario is up to. When Mario receives Peach's invitation, he reads it aloud and contemplates whether or not he should go. After all, he doesn't want everybody to find out what a disappointment he turned out to be, but he decides to attend the party and just keep on pretending. Of course, Bowser's minions overhear Mario talking to himself, and they relay that message back to Bowser, who is delighted to learn that Mario turned out to be a big loser. What Mario and the gang don't yet know is that while Mario was out trying to chase his dreams, Bowser was secretly amassing power and establishing his own kingdom. You see, Bowser's always been a little bit jealous of Mario's close relationship with Peach. In his youth, Bowser developed a bit of a crush on Peach, and he believes that by building his own kingdom and demonstrating how powerful he's become, Peach will be so impressed that she'll choose to be with him over Mario. So Bowser determines that his best course of action would be to bring his army to Peach's castle, crash Mario's party, and show everyone that he made himself into a king while Mario turned out to be a failure. When the party rolls around, Bowser does exactly what he intended to do, but things don't play out quite the way he thought they would. Rather than being impressed, Peach is understandably furious that Bowser basically laid siege to her castle and ruined the party that she was trying to throw for Mario. But Bowser, being the naive loner that he is just completely shocked and embarrassed that Peach didn't instantly fall in love with him, and so in a sort of panic move, he just straight up kidnaps Peach and takes her to his castle, and Mario, being paralyzed by self-doubt, is unable to stop him. Yes, in my idea for a Mario movie, Peach does get kidnapped by Bowser. But at least in this version of the story, we're given some actual context for why Bowser does this, and why Mario doesn't immediately stop him from the start. Because, I mean, in the games, it seems like Mario should be able to just prevent Bowser from kidnapping Peach in the first place. I mean, in most of the games, it's not his first rodeo, and he's a very capable character. He should be able to just stop Bowser, but anyway. Now, you might be thinking that having Peach get kidnapped is just way too cliche, but hey, it's the first Mario movie. You gotta tell the classic story, right? But I think there's an opportunity here to actually subvert the trope by maybe having Peach escape herself, only to run into some new adversity that she and Mario have to face together at the end of the movie. There's a lot of ways to go about it, but I think I'm getting way too ahead of myself, so let's just back up. So, at the castle, Peach's subjects are all in a panic, and they implore Mario to rescue Peach from Bowser's clutches. Now, Mario at this point is still dealing with all of that self-doubt, so he's initially resistant. You know, you gotta have that hero's refusal. But eventually Mario does set out on a quest to bring Peach back. And that concludes the first act of the movie. Now from there, the story would be about Mario learning to accept that failure is just a part of life, and it's up to him to choose to always pick himself back up and keep moving forward no matter what. How do you specifically tell that story? Well, like I said, maybe in another video we can get into the entire plot. So there you go. Was that so bad? Was that fanfiction awful? Don't answer that. Okay, so maybe I went a little too heavy on the fan service, but believe me, there was a lot more in that original 2017 outline that I left out. There was this whole subplot about a brigade of toads, led of course by Captain Toad, who all decided to form their own search party to rescue Peach, and then Luigi would have to overcome his cowardice to follow after them and throw himself in all sorts of dangerous situations just to prevent the Toads from getting into trouble, and then all of their paths would intersect with Mario and Yoshi, and eventually there was basically an entire fellowship all out to rescue Peach. But then meanwhile, Peach actually escapes from Bowser's castle all by herself, thus subverting the trope of her being helpless, and then so Peach is trying to find her own way back, but then she's intercepted by Kamek, who turns out to be the real villain behind it all, and Bowser's just this misunderstood character who's trying to please his adoptive father, and at the end, Kamek casts a spell on Bowser and makes him gigantic, and then Mario and Peach and Luigi and Toad and Yoshi have to all fight giant Bowser together. It was this whole thing. I literally had the entire plot planned out, but looking back, it's probably all just garbage. But I don't know, I think the first act structure that I had, had some potential. Obviously, this is just one idea, and who knows, maybe what Miyamoto and Illumination came up with is just way better than what I have here. I would certainly hope that's the case. I mean, I'm just one guy on the internet. But I hope this example at least serves to illustrate how ideas from multiple points in the Mario series can be synthesized into a more cohesive whole and used to reflect what it's often like to play a Mario game. But I think that's enough nerding out for one video. At this point, I just really want to know what Illumination is cooking up. I don't have high expectations, and I certainly don't anticipate that any of my ideas are going to actually happen, but if you actually like these ideas, I would encourage you to go into the real Mario movie with an open mind, and to not be disappointed if these ideas don't actually end up coming true, because they probably won't. But I am curious to know if any of you have hope that the real Mario movie will be any good. Did any of these thoughts or ideas resonate with you, or do you think I'm just way off the mark? Let me know in the comments. Again, if this does well, maybe I'll make another video or do a stream where I read through that old 2017 story outline that I did. Either way, thank you for watching this video. I know I don't upload very frequently, but what can I say? I'm a busy guy. I want to make art, and it's hard to make videos about making art when all you really want to do is just make more art. Speaking of making art, some of you might already be aware of this, but toward the end of last year, my friend Phil and I released a video game. So, you know, no big deal. It's a physics puzzle game about magnets, and it's on iOS and Android. You can find a link to that in the description, so if you're interested, I highly encourage you to check it out. But until the next video, I will be waiting with bated breath for that first Mario movie trailer to drop, and you can be sure that when it does, I will have a lot to say. Alright everybody, see you later.